we get started, today, I did want to let people know that we are going to be having several people join us and talk about some statewide and regional workforce initiatives. And as we do that, we wanted to let people go through their introductions and then have the discussion after. So I wanted to suggest that maybe people have pen and paper or have OneNote open to sort of take some notes and just write yourself some reminders if there's things that you'd like to ask or talk about as we go through this. So as we get started, if you want to put an introduction in the chat, I know a lot of people have already, but if you haven't yet, that would be great. We're going to go through a brief review of some prior ELD meetings and some VCAP objectives for the workforce. Then we'll move into some statewide workforce initiatives and regional workforce initiatives. And then we'll have some time for some roundtable discussions. And then we'll round the day out with some information from CDD. So with that, I think I will turn it over to Jen to introduce herself and get us started.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jen Severance. I'm a community and program support specialist with Let's Grow Kids. I'm taking over for Sherry today. She's off on vacation, which is good for her. So one of the things we wanted to do was talk a little bit about what we discussed in the January ELD committee meeting, which was some of the work on suspension and expulsion. And we asked our policy team to give us an update about what's going on in the legislature. So I just wanted to read a quick update from them. The Senate and Education Committee recently worked on a miscellaneous education bill, which included language that would extend the prohibition on suspension and expulsion of young children to private pre-K partner programs. And although, of course, we don't want young children expelled or suspended, we know it's much more complicated that in early childhood environments. So we reached out to the chair and testified to the committee about the need to study this issue more intensely in early education environments. And although time was really short, the committee included some simple language in the bill tasking Building Bright Futures to work with the Agency of Human Services and Agency of Education and other stakeholders to really define suspension, expulsion, and exclusionary practices and what that looks like in early childhood education settings, and to establish best practices for supporting children who face these measures. So we're going to continue to track this bill as it moves to the House, and we will keep you all informed. And then next, I think we have an update from Janet from Vermont AEYC about some legislative updates.
And I was thinking about this is not my part to talk about workforce development strategies. This is my part to talk about legislative updates. Okay, sorry about that. In my head, I was ready to go with that one. Okay. So where we are, and many of you were at Early Childhood Day at the legislature yesterday, where we gave some updates on that, along with when I did that with Sarah and Drake. But where we are right now is the Budget Adjustment Act, right, has passed out of the passed the House and the Senate, and includes and then going back to the House and got passed, it's gone to the governor now for the governor to sign or to veto. Initial indications, it sounds like, well, he doesn't love everything that's in it, that he's going to sign it, but we're waiting on that. From an early childhood perspective, there is $6 million for retention bonuses for the early childhood, for those who work in regulated early childhood education programs as part of that package. So that is an important element. The other element of it that in the Budget Adjustment Act is funding for the early child care education financing study. So this is something that was part of the plan sort of set in motion last year when the legislature passed Act 45 or passed H171, which is now Act 45, and included investments in laid out sort of the trajectory for transformation, as well as doing some workforce investments. Right now, BBF is leading the early childhood systems analysis, which is sort of part one. And then part two was then what is the financing study? There's a financing study that needs to be done to sort of say, okay, given everything we know right now, we've laid out for the vision for this system and the state has laid out as goals, how much does that really cost? And what are the options to pay for it? And the Joint Fiscal Office is going to be leading that financing study, and along with consultants, and the funds to support that are also in the Budget Adjustment Act, so that that work can get started and we don't have to wait for the FY23 state budget process to go through. So that's where things are in the Budget Adjustment Act. And then I'm really wishing I had I pulled up my slides from the other pieces of this right now from yesterday. Let me just pull something else up really quickly. So then, okay, those two pieces. Okay, so then the other elements of the legislative agenda that was, agreed on by a broader early childhood education workforce initiative or working group, endorsed by the Alliance, the Vermont Early Childhood Alliance as well. In terms of that building on that continued systems transformation, there's additional discussions around creating a child care capacity development program, recognizing that over the last few years, the state has recognized the need to invest in early childhood education capacity, and has given grant funds for that just on an ongoing basis, but we really need to establish that as a sort of a permanent feature of the early childhood education system going forward. And so there was testimony within House Commerce and Economic Development a week before last on that work. So hopeful that that will get into whatever's passed out of House Commerce and Economic Development by the end of the day tomorrow. So that's sort of on the transformation side of things. And then in terms of addressing the workforce crisis that is, broadly, related to the discussion we're having today, there's a few issues on the table right now. One is to establish a early childhood education recruitment campaign at the statewide level to ensure that the resources that are being created are, reflect the full variety of efforts that are happening at the statewide level, that regional initiatives are actually supported in being able to connect with the state level efforts, that individual early childhood education employers are able to have the information that they need to be able to direct their staff, to be able to develop their own sort of HR and hiring and recruitment and retention plans, taking advantage of all the state level programs, sort of recognizing that that coordination and information flow can be strengthened. So that's one piece that's in also being discussed with House Commerce and Economic Development. And then there are some other requests related to specifically supporting the early childhood workforce right now, looking at what do we know are the key reasons people are leaving the field or telling, both from sort of some data-driven stuff as well as anecdotal evidence. And so that includes things like healthcare, right? Not having access to affordable access to healthcare. So not being able to afford their student loans payments. And then finally, just and then also not being able to, afford their own childcare costs. So looking at those three key barriers and requesting resources for those pieces. So those are all, requests that have been put, that are being made and are being considered. Right now, the legislation is in sort of the main action right this second. It's happening in House Commerce and Economic Development. The other piece is within the budget bill, is really supporting the administration's request to expand child care financial assistance eligibility and to invest additional dollars there. And that's the other piece that many people are talking about as a really important element to continue to build on the overall systems transformation that everybody's been pushing for. So to address address both family affordability and address the financial stability of early childhood education programs. So that's the update on where things are right now.
Thank you, Janet. That was awesome.
Okay. Good thing I got practice doing it yesterday.
So I think we have Beth now to share a little bit about VCAP objectives.
Thank you. Yes, I'm just going to do a quick screen share and move us into our workforce conversation and roundtable. Can you all see that? Okay. So just really briefly, I'm Beth Truzansky. I'm the Deputy Director of Building Bright Futures, and welcome to the Early Learning and Development Committee. The Early Learning and Development Committee is one of the Vermont Early Childhood Action Plan committees. And our goals today are really to be able to share information about efforts underway to build an early childhood workforce pipeline. There's some incredible new resources, both in time, effort, and financial, to be able to address our workforce crisis. So we are planning to do some really brief state presentations about some activities and then do a roundtable of regional efforts that are happening. So thank you all for joining us. And really hoping that we can kind of walk away with some new connections and awareness of what else is going on that we might be able to work together with. So we also will get some updates from the Child Development Division. So really briefly, this committee's essentially with the VCAP has 4 goals, and we have a host of committees that help steward and monitor each of the goals. So the goal 3 is all children and families have access to high quality opportunities that meet their needs. And the Early Learning and Development Committee is one of the 2 committees that is stewarding this goal. Is really devoted to strengthening the integration, accessibility, and quality of early childhood services. So again, all services that children and families access prenatal through age 8. So this meeting is public. It's great to have some new folks, and you're welcome to come back. We really have been focusing on workforce, childcare capacity, the transitions from programs from one to the other, particularly access to universal pre-K, and the policies that govern those aspects of the system. So just really briefly, we think about the VCAP as being child and family centered, and many of the goals and objectives are really focused on strengthening the family and community level, and recognizing that there's a larger system that supports all of this. So our conversation right now today is really focused on that community level. Just to frame us, I think we are very much familiar with some of this data, but this is from the State of Vermont's Children. There's grave concerns about the status of our workforce, and certainly, participating in Early Childhood Day at the legislature yesterday, sitting with early childhood educators and program directors, continued challenges hiring. So the efforts and seeing a continued decline in the number of people in the childcare workforce. So from December 2018 to 2020, there was a 14% decline in the number of individuals working with children. And in Head Start, we saw 27%. 27% of slots were unable to be used because of staff vacancies. So with that, I will stop my screen share. I just wanted to provide some of that framing, and we'll hand it back for for the state level sharing, and look forward to the regional sharing as well.
Thanks, Beth. That was great. So yes, we're going to start with the statewide workforce initiatives. The very exciting news is that for state and regional initiatives, we have so many people, which is really exciting, but we don't have a lot of time. So we're going to hope for about 5 minutes for each presentation. For the statewide workforce, we have Katie Northey from UVM, who's partnering with Let's Grow Kids to do a study. And I think Erin Roche is here too, in case there's any questions, because she's been working on that project. We have Janet back again, talking about new workforce and supports through Vermont AYC. We have Sarah Kresser here from VSAC, who's going to be talking about the Early College Plus program for early childhood educators. And then we have Becky Millard here to talk about from Northern Lights, to talk about 2 new resources for program administrators. So Katie, do you want to start us off?
Great, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to talk about this study. Let me share my screen and I will be speedy. Okay. So this study is generously funded by Let's Grow Kids, and then it's kind of getting off the ground right now. But the idea is it builds off of this desire in the early childhood field, both nationally and in Vermont, that we really want to recruit and support a diverse workforce. And so, we have a lot of simultaneous projects and legislative efforts going on to increase our support of the workforce, improve our qualifications, compensation. But it's really important that we understand the experiences of individuals in the existing professional preparation pipeline so that we can address any barriers and challenges. We're kind of doing a lot of work, but we haven't actually asked students what they think. And so our hopes are that by identifying challenges that are unique to early childhood preparation program students in Vermont, especially those that are identified as BIPOC, first generation, rural students, and any students that are actually already in the workforce, that we can actually improve our preparation program and build a more equitable pipeline. So the idea is that we're going to ask them about their experiences, and we're going to do this through a survey and focus groups, but hopefully we're going to learn a lot about the supports that they have found the most helpful and how they've overcome challenges that they've experienced and encountered. And then we can share that information with, advocates, policymakers, the preparation programs, other researchers, so that we can really build out an equitable pipeline that is supporting the students. So the idea is that we are going to invite all of the students enrolled in Vermont early childhood preparation programs to participate. So we have been recruiting in these different programs to make sure that we can have someone that will disseminate the resources to students. Because I'm not allowed to reach out to all of these students individually, right? They have protections. And so this way we're partnering with the institutions and programs themselves. So the survey, it should take about 15 minutes. It asks them about their experiences in their current early childhood preparation programs. It asks them to describe some things about those experiences and about the programs themselves. It never asks the students to identify the programs. It asks them about their future goals for working in the early childhood field, and it will collect their demographics. It will also ask if they want to participate in a focus group, which will allow me to follow up with them if they present an information-rich case, so we can learn more about not only their experiences, but also their ideas for improving our preparation pathways and, just confirm and expand upon the quantitative findings. The focus groups will be virtual. They're going to be online. They're probably going to be 60 to 90 minutes, and it will, again, just get their ideas, and hopefully lots of people volunteer. If the students complete the survey, they'll have a 1 in 4 chance of getting a $50 Amazon gift card. If they participate in the focus group, they'll get a $75 gift card. So Let's Grow Kids is being very generous. We have crafted this survey so that we are not infringing on any of students' private information, right? We need to make sure that we're not interfering with FERPA, we're not asking anything really sensitive. And a really important part of this that has been integral to getting other institutions to agree is that we will only ever present and analyze the data in aggregate. So we will clean all the data so that the programs, people, different places will never be identifiable, right? And so that it's really about the system as a whole, rather than, oh, I had this experience at UVM, I wish it was different. So really looking at that data as a whole and to see those trends across students' experiences. For the timetable, as many of you probably know, any kind of study you want to do with humans has to be approved by the IRB. UVM's IRB is very busy, so they have been in process approving these materials for far longer than I would like them to. They were supposed to be through last week and still waiting, but everything is ready to go out once they are approved. And so the survey links will be distributed, all the recruitment materials, and hopefully by the end of April, we will have all of the quantitative data, which we will do a preliminary analysis on, and then reach out to students for focus groups, conduct those in April. If necessary, go into May, knowing that there's graduations and things. If we have to go longer, fine. But really spending the summer analyzing that data, figuring out what kind of trends we're seeing, what issues we can start addressing, and then fall really finish up any analysis, but really focus on sharing that and bringing it to groups, maybe such as this one, to discuss, but also the Early Childhood Higher Education Consortium and different groups like that, and focusing on helping to make change and improve this pipeline. And that is all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions that people have.
So I think, Leslie, we talked about saving your questions. We're going to have a discussion period at the end, so that will be great. And I also wanted to say, if anybody has any links that they want to put into the chat, I'll make sure that gets into the notes to get out to everybody if there's any links to these programs. So Janet, do you want to talk a little bit about the Vermont AUIC initiatives?
Yes, happy to do that. And let me share a screen. And these are slides I had put together for some testimony for the legislature week before last. And so they're a little broader, but I think it's useful for this group to sort of see them from that broader perspective, hopefully. And this is really looking at what the state level early childhood education workforce development initiatives are. And then I was in bold are the programs that Vermont AUIC is leading. So trying to put this all into context and put this all into the context of what is a robust workforce development pipeline. Like, what does that actually look like? What are the elements of it, right? And for every single field, like there needs to be move from career awareness and exploration, career preparation, there's recruitment, there's retention, and there's ongoing career development. Every field needs that, whether or not that is a super well-paying field or a field where so like even like accountants have this set up for them, right? We know that healthcare has this set up for them. So like we need this for Vermont to think about this in a really comprehensive way. And we're getting there, like we're building out these different elements, but like we need to like think about things according to these different buckets has been helpful for Vermont AUIC and our board and our staff to really understand what is the role we're playing. I wanted to flag on the career awareness and exploration a couple of things. So one is that we are in the first full school year of a pilot of a pre-apprenticeship program for high school students at career and technical centers. The program launched for the first time a little over a year ago, right? So getting this program launched during COVID was definitely a challenging time to decide to, have a work-based apprenticeship program that involves a partnership between multiple people. But we've seen great response from CTE centers as we're moving forward. Right now, we have students from 7 CTE center, high school students from 7 CTE centers engaged in the program. And it includes the work-based, experience with a mentor, which is the hallmark of every apprenticeship program, as well as the students are also taking a college level course within early childhood education. For most of them, it's the Intro to Early Childhood Education at CCV. So that's one important resource that's been emerging and I think can continue to strengthen. The second is I did want to make sure folks know that Vermont AAYC does have ECE career exploration materials and occasionally does, it's called upon to do some of those events. And that's another thing I think that could be built out. So for instance, there was just a middle school access day, I think in the southern part of the state. And we presented on early childhood education as a career. And again, getting, the research on when young people begin to think about their career, it really shows that you've got to get to them early as they're thinking about what they're planning for high school and for their careers. And so I just wanted to share that this is just the front page. There's a more detailed brochure around this that shows some of the pathways and careers. But this is a resource that's specifically targeted to younger people. And we also have on our website, as well as we have hard copy booklets on careers in early childhood education that really outline what some of the pathways are. And again, the goal is to help people sort of understand there's so many different roles that you can play within early childhood education, and that maybe you do start as a teacher assistant, but your career can grow within early childhood education. It's not like a dead end. It's not a dead end job at all. So I wanted to make sure people know we have those resources. Let's see, in terms of preparation, the other piece that that we manage is the Registered Early Childhood Education Apprenticeship Program. And that is, I think we have 19 folks enrolled in that program right now. And we're actually working with the Bank Street College of Education out of Boston, who's done a lot of work in terms of supporting apprenticeship programs nationally and looking at how to strengthen those. Right now, we just started a consulting project with them for us to think about how to strengthen Vermont's apprenticeship program to make sure it really is, a really important part of this robust workforce development pipeline. So we'll be beginning to do outreach and surveys and gathering input on that. So if you want to be engaged in that, let me know, or let Brenda Schramm know. And we'll keep that moving forward. We literally just had the kickoff meeting. I think they just had a meeting at 9 a.m. And so this is new, but it's in terms of that project. And then for retention, Vermont AAYC is going to be was selected by the state to run the new student loan repayment assistance program for the early childhood workforce. And that program was passed in Act 45 last year. And that is designed for early childhood educators working in regulated programs, essentially full-time, over 30 hours a week, and who have student loan, who have a student loan debt. And the program was really designed, actually, this committee helped sort of conceive of this idea probably in like 2017, 2018. And then by sort of like fall of 2019 is when we really felt like the time was right. We were going to be able to, work this and make this real from a policy perspective, designed the program in the fall of 2019. And so it is, so I know we've definitely heard from folks who are disappointed that, like, why doesn't this include everybody? Like, what, there's going to be people that are left out, and like 100% agree. And this program was really designed based on the observation from many early childhood education employers that there's actually a lot of people that earn degrees in early childhood education or highly related fields that then don't go work in early childhood education because then they can't afford to pay their student loans. So that was a specific problem this program was designed to address. And we are working feverishly at Vermont AUIC to get this program up and running and hopefully be able to announce it with more details by the end of April, accept applications in May. So more details coming on that. Heather Martin is leading that program for Vermont AUIC. We hired her as a full-time staff person. And then in terms of career development, just wanted to flag, the things on the right in terms of TEACH, the annual conference, which is going to be held in person again next fall. And then that Vermont AUIC manages the professional development grants and bonuses that on behalf of CDD, and that, the grants and the bonuses are really important resources for early childhood educators that are pursuing ongoing professional development. And that's just I want to make sure that everybody knows about that as a resource as we're trying to support folks. So that's probably more than my 5 minutes, but I had a lot I wanted to tell you.
Thanks, Janet. That's great. That was awesome. Wow, so much going on at Vermont AUIC. It's very exciting. So next we have Sarah Kresser from VSAC, who's talking about Early College Plus.
Yes, hi, good morning. Thanks for having me. So I actually I share my time between VSAC and CCB. I was hired this year under a Vermont Community Foundation grant to work in a program called Early College Plus, which I'll get to in just a second. But I just want to back up and make sure, I'm sure most of you have heard of the Early College program in the state of Vermont. Well, it's actually a national initiative, but in Vermont, there are 6 colleges where high school seniors can do their senior year of high school and a full year of college at the same time and get a jump on their college credits, and the state of Vermont pays their tuition. So that's the early college program that's available to eligible students throughout the state of Vermont. At CCV, we also this year offered something called Early College Plus, which incorporated 3 certificate programs. So students applied to early college, and then they could choose to pursue a certificate in one of 3 areas, so that they really are amassing college credits, coming out of their year with a workforce ready certificate. And then also, because it was funded by the Vermont Community Foundation, there was an incentive of $1,000 stipend for the Early College Plus students to cover the costs. Obviously, tuition's already covered, but this would cover books, fees, really anything associated with college, even transportation, if they need gas for their car or whatever it is to get to school. And that is in addition to any financial aid that students would be available or would be eligible for. So students in early college don't get federal aid, but they can fill out the FAFSA and get the Vermont grant. So it really made it accessible for a lot of students. And the reason I'm here today is next year in our offerings of certificates, we've added the childcare certificate to Early College Plus. So maybe I'll just share the brochure if I can, and that might be helpful. So as I said, Early College Plus is a program, free college with $1,000 stipend, a certificate, and also that's my role as a VSAC outreach counselor. I support students in this program and give them academic support, career support, whatever they need. So the certificate programs for next academic year, you can see on the left there at the top of the list, childcare, but I'll just go over the other ones too, so you might be interested. Cybersecurity fundamentals, digital media production, graphic design, and IT service desk. But let me, oopsie, sorry about that.
Sarah, I'm not seeing your screen.
Oh, it didn't share? Okay, that's good because something else just popped up we don't want. All right, sorry about that. Let me go back to Zoom and So sorry.
That's okay.
How's that? Better? Okay.
Yes.
All righty. So that, I guess that's the second most common Zoom error after not unmuting. All right, so there's the list of certificate programs that you heard me talk about, just in case you know families or students that might be interested in those. But obviously we're most excited today about the, and it is called healthcare as a certificate. It does nest or stack into the associates in early childhood education. So you can see the course flow. You'll recognize some of those courses probably from tech centers as well as the apprenticeship program. So students are completing these courses. Some of them may still have some requirements for their high school. So it's 12 credits. All early college students have to be full-time students, which is a 12 credit load. There's room there for these students to add other courses that they need for high school requirements, graduation. Or if, for example, some students entering the certificate program might have already taken Intro to Early Childhood Education in their tech center, or so this, or through dual enrollment, they could start adding other courses that would work towards apprenticeship and or an associate's degree at CCV. And so this is obviously designed to feed into the associates, which in turn, there's an agreement with UVM as well as NVU Online for students to continue on if they want to do a bachelor's. So it's really nicely kind of nested into that pipeline. And I'm relatively new to the early childhood scene. I was a professor of education at NVU, so I dabbled in early childhood, but I was working with elementary students. But this is really exciting to me as I get to know all of you and all the efforts that are already underway in the state of Vermont. And this seems like it will align nicely with some of the other initiatives. And I look forward to working with you to see how we can make it as easy as possible for students to work on two things at once and to make a logical flow in as we kind of support them through to the workforce to address this big need that we have in the state of Vermont. So that's the certificate program, and I'll be happy to answer questions. I put a website in the chat. It's gotocollegevt.org. That's the best place to get information on Early College Plus. So thank you.
Thank you,
put-
Sarah.
Yeah, I'll put my contact in there as well. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. And now we have Becky Millard from Northern Lights at CCV talking about 2 new resources for program administrators.
Perfect. Thanks so much. So a couple things I just want to make sure many of you know about the various resources that Northern Lights has available to folks in the workforce. We have 2 new resources, one of which is ready right now and one is coming this month. So we've built a new page on our website that is specifically resources for new programs. What we've found is that we often get a lot of the same questions from new programs about how to find things on the CDD website, new forms they need to fill out for their staff. And this is really specifically around their professional development. It isn't a universal sort of new program resource, but as programs are getting started, there tend to be a lot of things they need related to staff requirements, director requirements, finding documents, trying to understand training recommendations and requirements, etc. So the idea here is that it's combining all those resources in one place. It's on our website in such a way that we can update it. So if something changes, we can change it. It's not in any way intended to be complete. I assume I'm going to share it with you today, and I'm assuming several of you are going to say, hey, you forgot to include this thing that lots of people are asking for. Awesome. Please tell me. I'm very excited to continue adding to this. We put some of the key ones that our resource advisors are hearing about, and I'm really happy to keep adding to it. I'm also never married to any solution living with Northern Lights. So I like naming that as well. If we find out that this should live on the VACI website, or this should live somewhere else, or, you know, this is a resource that better belongs somewhere else, one of the things we all deal with is how complicated and confusing our systems can be, especially when you're coming in new. So I'm really open to feedback about if you see opportunities for better alignment. The other resource I want to mention is the resource advisors at Northern Lights have been developing a training for new directors. As they developed this training, they realized that this is a good training for all directors. So we haven't fully really the place where we need to name the thing. Have you ever noticed the naming of something really has a direct impact on who's going to actually attend? So we're figuring out the naming part, but essentially they've built this out based on the questions that they've gotten from directors over the past 4 or 5 years. So we really go through what are the BFIS quality credentialing accounts that belong to a staff member. What does that mean? What do directors need to know? How do you send in documentation? How do you understand the education requirements for individual staff members based on their role in your program, which may be different than the role that they're under for the child development division, and sort of navigating all of those pieces around education, qualifications, and professional development. This will be a free training. It will be led by the resource advisors. And part of the goal here is also helping people know that the resource advisors are available to them for an array of reasons. That if they've got questions that come up related in any way to their professional development, education, qualifications, anything sort of connected in there, that they can call their resource advisor. Another place, and this is sort of warm handoff opportunities, is while Northern Lights broadly has what we're implementing are non-credit options. We're implementing trainings. We do have, as most of you know, a responsibility around receiving transcripts, processing those, entering data into the state status system for colleges. So there can be some confusion about, CCV as a whole, Northern Lights at CCV. We do support the field with, no matter where they went to college, we support them with getting their transcript data into their BFIS accounts and entering those courses for them. So they're all in those accounts for them. And those accounts stay with them as an individual, regardless of what program they're working at. So all of this is confusing, and we totally get it. So we're trying to put some of these resources in place to help. The only other thing I wanted to mention, I was thinking about this as some others were talking, is in addition to the support we provide to individuals, Northern Lights supports programs with implementation throughout the system that can align. So one of the things we do, for example, is the Early Childhood Summer Institute offers a series of college courses. I review those before registration opens, so I can tell them exactly what that will count for in the early childhood system on the child development division side. The Agency of Ed also reviews them so they can tell individuals what they will count for related to the Agency of Ed. So, we're doing some of that preliminary work to tell the field, here's a course that's available and here's what it will count for in the system, depending on sort of what pathways they're looking at. We also monitor and support implementation of the Fundamentals for Early Childhood Professionals series. So for example, CTE programs often implement fundamentals, so they work in partnership with our resource advisors there. Step Up to Childcare often is looking at using fundamentals. So we oversee that curriculum. They sign an agreement with us in order to implement it. They still can. We're thrilled. We give them guidance. We give them support. We want to make sure that we're providing a nice grounding that aligns with the system. So that's a place where we have a role. It's not telling people what they're allowed to offer, but it's really helping them offer whatever they're imagining in a way that'll align with systems so people can get the best bang for their buck, I suppose, out of the programs they're choosing. So I think that's it. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Becky. That was great. I just wanted to, before we move to the more regional initiatives, I just wanted to make sure people are thinking about, what more do you want to know, some of the questions that you might have, and any thoughts about potential overlap or complementary work that's being done between the statewide versus the regional initiatives. So I'm going to hand it over to Leslie.
Great. Thank you so much. And that was really great to hear about all these available initiatives that we have going on in the state right now. It's pretty exciting. So we're going to move right into talking about some regional workforce initiatives. And again, we're just going to ask people to introduce themselves and just give us a quick update. And then at the end of that, we will go ahead and open things up to some more conversation. So we have joining us today, Step Up to Childcare. We have Deb Grennan from Northern Lights Resource Advisor. We have Marty Cohn, who's going to talk about the Child Care Counts Coalition. We have Amy Brooks, who is going to talk about Vital Communities. Rob Bainey, who's going to talk about Adult Tech and Career Centers. And Darla Senecal, who's going to talk about the day in the life of an early educator video project. So we'll go ahead and start with Deb and just give us a quick overview, and we'll go ahead with that.
I can make a suggestion. We may have some others who joined and didn't make it onto the agenda. So maybe just put something in the chat that you have something to share, and we will queue you up after those folks have shared.
All right, thank you. Yes, I'm Deb Grennan with Northern Lights at CCV. I'm one of the 5 resource advisors for the division, if you will, of CCV. And I serve Franklin, Grand Isle, and Lamoille County. And I'm here to talk mostly about Lamoille County, although Step Up to Childcare does seem to be something that's percolating around the state. And we're in the very beginning stages in Franklin County of doing something similar. And I'll talk about that in a minute. So I felt guilty. I didn't have a PowerPoint, so I'm sharing that now, I think, maybe, if I can figure out. I just threw together a few slides. What am I supposed to hit here, Becky? View. Anyway, can you see the
It's good. We can
slideshow?
see it. You're
Where
good.
is it? Where is it?
In the middle on that line.
All right, there we go. Sorry, guys. All right. Is that right? Can you see the slideshow, or is it still
Fine, we can
all?
see it. You're good.
Okay, so Step Up to Childcare. So basically, as I said, I wished I had better news for you for Lamoille County this time. We recruited the best that we could. It's a project that is supported by Building Bright Futures in a grant, a very nice, generous grant. We recruited and we're hoping to begin it in March, but we didn't have the participants applications that we were hoping to get. So we are postponing it probably until fall. And with that, I just want to give you a little bit of detail about, whoops, where's the next slide? Trying to go to the next slide, but not doing it. All right, this is the 3rd most common, right, fail of, what am I supposed to hit? There we go. Can we see the next slide now? So the elements of the project include Prime for Success. It's a curriculum to support folks in a wraparound way for our entering the workforce. Basically, this is a curriculum that they use in Northeast Kingdom Learning Services to support folks that might not have soft skills to enter the workforce. And then again, fundamentals for early childcare professionals is something that I am on the committee to support. What we typically roll out as a 15-week program is going to be offered in this program as an 8-week series twice a week with the support of Prime for Success. All of these components sort of overlap in a 3-month, during a 3-month period. That was the goal. And so Prime for Success begins first, fundamentals sort of overlaps a little bit, and an 80-hour paid internship at the end is the final part of the program. And hopefully the individual would be hired at the childcare that they're doing a paid internship. So it's a learn and earn kind of an idea for folks that, again, has been percolating around the state. And these are the flyers that I know about so far. This is our one in Lamoille County. Again, we didn't have the participation that we had hoped to have. You know, that be that as it may, right now, our hope is, and I'll just stop the primitive slideshow event, which I'm sure you found very exciting, to move on to just the general discussion and plans moving forward. So our committee is still really committed to the project. I need to talk to Beth about, and Beth and everyone else about changing it up at Building Bright Futures. And there have been a lot of suggestions because recruitment has been an issue around the state. So we're thinking about how this might be delivered online real time as a cohort around the state, because we had a few people around the state that were interested in each region. Obviously, it's not really feasible to get them all together in one room, although that was the original goal in each region. But looks like there aren't enough folks in this population to recruit in that way. So we're hoping that somehow we can revamp the grant a little bit to provide this program online real time. And then we already have the internship sites set up around the state, pretty much everywhere. So we're really hoping that Voc Rehab, Hireability, some of the other Department of Labor folks are all working with us in this project to provide the best possible wraparound experience that we can have, so that folks enter the workforce professionally and ready to, serve the children out there in the best way possible at the beginning of their career. So, I'll open it up for questions, I guess, later, but that's the down and dirty of what's happening in Step Up to Childcare. So it looks basically the same around the state, but there are some nuances that change in terms of, we offer fundamentals in some parts of the state. I've heard that there was an option for a college level introductory developmental course through CCV and other things. But so there are those little things, but we're hoping that this Lamoille region can, we can kick it off and maybe figure out how to offer it online real time for folks.
Great. Thank you so much, Deb. Next, we have Marty.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm here today representing the Windham County Child Care Counts Coalition. The Windham County Child Care Counts Coalition was an idea by Chloe Leary, who I think many of you know. She's the executive director of Winston Prouty here in Brattleboro. We started meeting in January of 2018, so we've been meeting monthly, the fourth Friday of every month, even through the through the pandemic, with the goal of stabilizing or increasing the number of available slots for childcare in Windham County. We've had a number of what we consider successes, in that we've conducted 2 community surveys to kind of get a read of not only what are the childcare needs, but also the response by the business community. Everything that we do, we try and bring more awareness of the issues. So we've had a fair amount of success in promoting the concepts through the Brattleboro Reformer, the Commons, as well as our own, you can go to the Winston Prouty website and you'll see a bunch of information about what we've been able to do. We've been making presentations to select boards, business groups, including the Rotary clubs. And as a result of that, we were able to get the Brattleboro Rotary Club to institute a scholarship program at the CCV for early childhood educators. That's a $2,500 scholarship we've given away for the last 3 years, looking forward to the 4th year this year. We worked closely with the Windham Career Center, and we're able to bring back early childhood education program there. We've developed a pathway flow chart that's been very well accepted. And we've also been able to, whenever we hear about a potential closing of a childcare facility, we're able to rally the troops and help make sure that facility either stays open or goes under some other ownership. the last thing that I want to tell you is actually, I think the most exciting is that we created the Elizabeth Christie Fund. And the Elizabeth Christie Fund is a fund dedicated to a retention and bonus or hiring bonus for early childhood professionals. We've raised $60,000 and we're about to begin disseminating those money, distributing those funds in April, the month of the child. So we're still continuing to fundraise. There's going to be another a big push in the next couple of weeks to see if we can, ratchet that money up some more. But every penny that we raise is going to early childhood professionals. So it's an exciting process. And I should mention, all volunteers coming from not only people involved in early childhood, but from the business community and other organizations. And I look forward to any questions in the roundtable.
Sorry, I did not get that turned off. I thought I got it. Thank you so much, Marty. We really appreciate all of that. That's great. So we're going to move right to Amy Brooks next.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amy Brooks. I'm the Executive Director of the Early Care and Education Association in the Upper Valley. And one of the things I'm going to share today is some of the work that Vital Communities has convened around the childcare crisis in Upper Valley region, both sides of the river. Back in November, they convened 2 symposiums we actually worked in partnership with the Corporate Council, municipal leaders, Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center, and the Couch Family Foundation. We had employers speaking to, we were all preaching to the choir, but just we had parents there telling their stories. It was like kind of setting the tone of what is the issue and what kind of, how far in the community does it touch? And those symposiums were recorded, and I'll put them in the chat. Out of those symposiums came 3 work groups. We have an advocacy work group. We have a facilities and program models work group, and we have a staff recruitment and retention work group. Those work groups are attended. Actually, our facilities and program models work group is co-led by the city manager for Lebanon. We never thought we would have these levels of people involved in working on childcare issues. So we have HR departments from some of the big corporations. We have representation from Dartmouth Hitchcock. We have representation from Dartmouth College. It is definitely touching all parents, and parents work in the community. So we have parents on these work groups. We have representation for childcare programs on there to make sure anything that is kind of conjured up is set in the reality of what programs can actually use or do. I am co-lead of the staff recruitment and retention. Very invigorated by everything that I'm hearing today. So I'm going to be contacting a lot of you and just talking about one of our initiatives that in the community wide, we are doing our wellness campaign. It's an 8-week program for staff to get involved in wellness, self-wellness, self-care. And we have participation from the community in that. We've never thought we would reach that. And then of course, kind of accumulating to the week of the young child, we have the teacher appreciation week, which the community will be celebrating. So we can have Mascoma Bank Foundation is on our work committee, and they'll have it on their billboard. Like, we can finally reach that level. So if you're interested in that work, you can look at those symposium recordings. And if you're interested in learning more, I will put our facilitator's contact information in the chat. Her name is Andra, and she can include you if you would like to attend the meeting, or just include you in the notes. And that's about it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Amy. That sounds great. And we are going to move right to Rob.
Morning, everyone. My name is Rob Bonney. I oversee workforce and adult technical education at Southwest Tech down in Bennington. I'm not out in space, but it's certainly a lot better than what's behind me in my office. So, seems like a good place to be sometimes. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about adult technical education and our role here. There are 17 tech centers throughout the state of Vermont, and most of them have an active adult technical education program. Many of the folks who oversee adult technical education are also members of VACTIA, which is the Vermont Adult Career and Technical Education Association. A little bit of history. Our former president, Gwen Bailey Rowe, who's now the director at North Country Career Center, started a program that you heard a little bit about earlier in partnership with other folks in the Newport area called Step Up to Childcare. And that ran successfully, I'll say it back in 2019, I think. And then of course the pandemic messed everything up. So our organization, VACTIA, has made a concerted effort to expand the offerings of the Step Up to Childcare program through adult technical education at a number of tech centers. That includes myself in Bennington, Newport. I think we heard about Deb, I don't remember exactly where you are, but in Lamoille County, I believe, Springfield, and I believe there was one other that I can't recall right now, maybe Brattleboro, I'm not sure. So we've made an effort to expand the offering of the Step Up to Childcare program through VACTIA and through our members. As you heard, we were not as successful as we hoped this spring. Recruitment was a big challenge. Essentially what Step Up to Childcare is a packaging of a lot of the different trainings that folks need to pursue their level 1 license. You saw an internship, you saw the fundamentals class. There's some soft skills training through the Prime for Success, which is something they use in the Northeast Kingdom. But we also include first aid and CPR in there as well. And the Vermont mandated childcare orientation are all part of that program. So it is a package. It is fairly standardized. It's something that any adult tech center could offer. And like I said, VACTIA as an organization would like to be able to offer Step Up to Childcare more widely across the state, but we do need to solve our recruitment problems to get more folks interested in that program as a viable pathway into well towards pursuing their level 1 license. So it's a great program. I think part of the issue is that we do charge tuition for that, though pretty much anybody can receive tuition assistance through VSAC right now. There's plenty of money to go around for that. And what we're really looking to do is develop another viable pathway for folks to enter the early childhood career. And so adult technical education, specifically VACTIA, is looking to continue to build on that and hopefully be able to offer that Step Up the Childcare program more widely throughout Vermont in the future.
That sounds great. Thanks so much, Rob. And next we have Darla.
Hi, everyone. Great to see you today. So I am a regional manager for Building Bright Futures. I cover Addison, Rutland, and Bennington County. And what I'm going to talk to you today about is an initiative that's been started down in Rutland. And this came out of a pre-pandemic. We were talking at that council table about how to educate our community, how to get the word out about what early childhood really is and what it means to have high quality early care and learning. So again, pre-pandemic, we started the ball rolling and then the world went sideways and it got tabled for a while. So we came back to it this year. And we had talked about a number of different ways that we could do that. And we've settled on this idea of a video. So we're working with Castleton University we will be a Rutland area photographer who will be following an early educator throughout their day over the course of a couple of days. And we're putting together an informational video that can be used to not only help to educate the community, because one of the things we've talked about at that table is unless you're in it right now, you don't understand what childcare, what's happening in childcare and how the struggle it is to find it. If you're removed even a generation from that, you know, it's a very different world than it was when I was actually a home provider 20 years ago, actually 30 years ago. Oh gosh, 30 years ago. So it looks very different. The world looks very different. The profession is very different and the needs are very different. And unless you're in it, you don't understand that. So when it comes to voting, when, you know, we're asking our communities to vote on things that they don't really have, you know, maybe their child care experience looked very different. So we wanted to find a way to bring that home to them. We also wanted to find a way to bring people to this, you know, to this profession. And we thought we could do that with this video. So we're very excited to be working again with Castleton University, with their media department, with Vibe Photography out of Rutland, and several child cares in the area have come forward to say that they are interested to be part of the project. So we are very hopeful that not only will this be useful for Rutland County, but for the rest of you as well throughout the state to use as that recruiting tool, and that we can get it out at as many, you know, as many virtual spaces, newsletters, however you communicate with your world, to get that out there. And then there's also a possibility, we're looking at about a 5-minute video. There's also a possibility of taking little snippets of it so that we can continue to put that information out throughout the year. But it's not the same thing where people say, oh, I've already seen that video, we're tired of it. But that's still an opportunity to get that saturation and dose of the information out. So that's our project, and we are very excited about it. If any of you are interested, please reach out to me. There are a number of ways that you can help us participate. Thanks.
Okay, that is fantastic. Thank you so much, everyone, for the information that you are starting this conversation with. Beth, I don't know if you want to jump in. You said that there were some others.
I just wanted to create space. I know that it's great to have so many different people join. So if there are other regional efforts that people want to share, would invite you to do that. Anything we missed? Pretty impressive what has been shared. And certainly the hope of the roundtable today was both to share what's going on as well as to cross-pollinate, you know, so that efforts can be built on each other, you know, or ideas can be shared. Certainly there's state resources that I think most of the regional efforts are building on. So to be also put names with faces on who you need to reach out to when you have questions. So if there aren't other regional efforts, then I think we have time for some discussion or reflections. I certainly learned a lot. So thank you.
Beth, could I just add one more thing that's come up at council tables? So again, this is Darla. One thing that's come up, and it's I was interested to hear Martin speak today. A resource that was shared with me from Dora Levinson from EBF when she was in the same role that I am now. Child Care Counts created a great resource that was very county specific. And that's come up at the table too. It had the career ladder and then many, many links, like page 2 of that was many, many links regionally of resources for people who might be interested in joining the profession. And I know we've talked about this at all of my council tables. We've all been interested in it. I haven't had the bandwidth to put it all together for 3 separate regions, but I do believe, I would like to just share that there is a need for this or a request from the field for this. So if there's those of you that might have bandwidth or have resources that you could share with me to help put something together like this for regions, I think it would be met with glee.
Martin, would you have a link for that resource? So is that something we could put in the chat so that people could see that? Oh, did you put it in there?
Yes,
I'm
I did.
sorry, I'm just seeing it now. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
So I think at this point, we just really want to open it up for people to have some discussion, to talk about what more would you be interested in knowing? And then maybe some thoughts about overlap or duplication or complementary work between the state and the regional workforce initiatives. And leading into what we think is needed long-term. Crystal,
see
you wanna
Crystal's
go ahead
hand up.
and start? Yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Crystal Michon. I'm Director with Child Care Licensing with the Child Development Division. And I have a vision for the future that when a child care program closes, there's not a lot of emergency effort that's needed because we have a solid supply of childcare capacity across the state. But Marty, I appreciated you sharing, what's happening down in your area and the work that your community does when you're aware of a childcare program. And it sparked for me to want to share with everybody that the childcare licensing unit kind of jumps on board in those situations when a program is closing. Sometimes we know before anything's been shared for information. Because the program has confidentially shared that information with us. We pull our licensing team together. We also pull in the referral specialist and the eligibility specialist or the specialized childcare coordinator from that community. And we immediately start thinking about where is their capacity. And we really look to the communities around Vermont to see how they want to respond to the situation. And so when there is community efforts happening as well, that's fantastic. And we usually see solutions pop up sooner versus later. We're able to help expedite applications or process variances for a list of existing licensed programs to try to help sustain the capacity. And I wanted to just share that information so when there are entities around the state that are also doing it at a grassroots level, that you can reach out to our licensing team and we'll certainly assist. And we can also, marry our efforts in those situations so that we're not bombarding potential new licensed applicants. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Crystal. Amy, you had your hand up next.
Yes, there seemed to be a thread of Step Up to Childcare going around different regions and different places. And I was just wondering if there were an opportunity to have a Step Up to Childcare kind of a group where that could be better coordinated and shared. I mean, I know our region, just sitting here thinking where I'm definitely interested, where we can learn and kind of bounce ideas off of each other or just see what materials are being used. I didn't know. There just seemed to be bits of pieces going around the state, and I didn't know if there was maybe an opportunity there to pull those pieces together.
I would say certainly that VACTIA would welcome, a meeting like that for any of our tech centers who are hunting to run that program or have attempted to run that program. So Marina Cole at North Country Career Center is your best bet. She's the president of our organization, and she's the point person for Step Up to Childcare. So I would contact her about that.
And
I
I
would
just
really
wanted
love
to add to
if you could.
the piece that was just there. So Deb, we're probably on the same page. I just wanted to add to this the piece of what Rob was just saying, that the Step Up to Childcare, my understanding thus far is it has specifically been offered through those adult ed centers, but it's based on a foundation of the Fundamentals for Early Childhood Professionals curriculum. Not that everyone is using it necessarily. Some are using college courses as a foundation, which if you're, if you have an organization that wishes to implement the Fundamentals curriculum, we can help support you do that. I think there's one of the cool things that we've seen about the Step Up to Childcare design is the idea of blending it with an internship and really working closely in partnership. I think that it was designed to be offered in partnership with the sort of soft skills piece. So it kind of depends on what you're looking for. I don't know that Step Up to Childcare has been offered anywhere other than in an adult ed setting, but it is like based on a similar foundation to some of the other instrumental pieces in our system. So, you know, if depending on what you're looking for, Amy, Northern Lights could absolutely support you with some of that too.
Deb, did that cover what you?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to make sure, you know, for Lamoille County that we were included in some sort of meeting like that, because we are thinking about moving, and we were planning to include Marina, Rob in our efforts our next steps to try to implement this virtually around the state to get a good cohort of folks to move through the program. So please include us, whoever does that.
Linda, I see your hand, but Crystal, I didn't know if you were going to have a comment about this topic before we move on, or is it something new?
And Linda might have a comment on this topic as well, so I'm happy to, no, okay, thanks. I did want to just share a thought regarding the Step Up to Childcare. When I think about our childcare licensing regulations, somebody with a high school diploma can immediately be hired as a trainee in a childcare program without all of those educational training components that is included in the Step Up to Childcare. They have their first year of employment to complete those requirements. And so when I'm hearing about the recruitment challenges into that program, I'm wondering if there's maybe an opportunity to partner more with regulated programs and have their trainees who they've hired with no experience or education participate in that. And one of the things I think about is the challenge that program directors are having right now with having to be covering in classrooms so much of the time themselves. So their time is very, very limited to support those trainees getting, finding the trainings and getting to their resource advisor and completing those trainings. And if there could be a partnership where somebody was helping scaffold that for them, like this Step Up to Childcare program, it would really free up some of their administrative challenges that they're experiencing right now. So I wonder if there's maybe an opportunity here to adjust the concept of Step Up to Childcare so that it blends a little bit more to meet the need of the field.
Crystal, I can respond to that. That was actually the idea here in Bennington. I partnered with the Starting Points group here, and the idea was we would find a few people from the general public, and we would find some few people just as you suggested. And unfortunately, those people just didn't materialize. I don't know if centers just didn't have enough people to spare. I don't know if those particular people who were already employed just didn't want to go through the program. But we had, unfortunately, no luck finding any of those people. Though I'm in full agreement with you that that's a really important group that could be served by the Step Up program. Some of the things that we ran into was timing. Some places had some new hires, but they needed to get their CPR and first aid and some other things done before the program was going to start. So it didn't make a lot of sense for them to enroll. So there were some logistical issues as well that came into that. But new hires in that first year are definitely a group that we want to pursue for this program. So and attempts have been made to do that. So I think it's more about how to better do that in the future.
I'm happy, outside of this meeting, to be a resource to the different Step Up to Childcare programs that are occurring around the state and help really align, what childcare licensing requires by what time period with the design of the program. Maybe there's some very simple program designs or tapping into Northern Lights that would help make that feel more viable to the programs, not only in your area, but other states. But I just want to offer myself up as a resource.
Yeah, well, that's great. We appreciate that.
All right. Anything else about that? Okay, Linda, what do you have?
I would be one of those programs who would try to make that work for new hires. So I would be happy to help with anything around that as well. It's definitely an issue. I find that, go ahead, that there's not a lot of support for brand new staff and that, you know, we struggle with that bandwidth as administrators to provide the support that we sometimes feel that they need. So I think that was a great idea, but that wasn't why my hand was raised. I have a question for Caitlin. I think the study that you're doing is awesome. And I'm wondering how, as program administrators, how can we help make sure that the staff that we know who would be eligible to do the survey, like, get the link and do it? Like, will there be a push out to people, like programs as well, or just through their coursework?
We're going to, in order to really isolate the specific population of people enrolled currently in teacher prep programs, we have it going out through those programs. So we have, like, Marina Cole is going to distribute to anyone in Step Up. And so we've tried to identify who those people would be to help kind of disseminate the survey.
So like, if I have teachers in Teach scholarships, I would assume Teach would be helping you.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So they're helping. So I've tried to corner the market to make sure that we have everybody who is managing a program. The only program I haven't heard anything back from is Goddard. Everybody else has signed up and is excited to help, and CCB has a bit more paperwork they need me to do, but it's hinging on UVM. So, but I'm so glad you're supporting it.
Yeah, I think it will be fascinating to hear what people say.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Thank you.
Cynthia?
Hi, thanks very much. And I raised my hand after Linda asked her question, because I was also thinking about a question for Katie. Again, super excited about this survey to see what folks are thinking about as they're going through their teacher prep programs. And I can't help but say, I'm curious about, down the road, would it be advantageous, or is there any appetite for thinking about a survey of those people following up once they've been in the field for 1 to 3 years, about what are the skill sets, what best served them from that teacher prep program, and are there any topics, issues, components that they felt they did need? I mean, we've heard a lot about soft skills, for instance, right today. I don't, as a former director of a program, to Linda's point, to really supporting those brand new people once they've actually graduated, and then 1 or 2 or 3 years in the field. Sometimes teacher prep programs don't always, we think we know what teachers need, and yet what happens in the classroom doesn't stay in the classroom. It's not like Vegas. So I'm just curious about, how do we maybe take advantage and leverage this survey that you're doing now to get some really great work about real-time teacher prep programs, but then thinking about how did that information in that teacher prep program actually transition into real-time practice and experience, and what did those same students need, 2 or 3 years into their practice? So it was just a thought I had, because I'm very excited about your survey. Thanks.
Yeah, of course. So to protect the students, we have to collect as little personal identifying information about them as possible. So we are collecting their first name and email address if they would like to participate in the focus group. If they want to be eligible for an incentive, that gets collected through a separate survey that will never be connected to their data, and we cannot use that information. And so I will have the contact information for people who have opted in to be considered for the focus group. And I think it's a great idea to, whether they're selected for the focus group or not, say, hey, is it okay if I keep your email and reach out if we do a follow-up study? I think if we do a follow-up study, it would be interesting to survey a lot more people. But it's going to be pretty fascinating. I'm excited to see how we do it. I have also learned how many constraints are present when you want to distribute a survey to everyone enrolled in a teacher prep program across the state. And I'm feeling thankful that Vermont is as small and cozy as it is right now. So, you know, it's there are blessings and curses for sure. But I think that's a great idea.
That's great. Thank you so much. Sharon, I'm actually not seeing your hand raised, but did you have your hand up?
I do. Thank you. I guess I need to change it to a brighter color so it doesn't blend into my background.
Oh,
Thanks,
goodness.
Leslie.
Now that you say that, I do see it. Sorry.
It's all good. It's fine. So first of all, this is my first ELD meeting, and I just want to say it's been fantastic. I have loved this meeting so much. So great conversation and topic. So part of my work with Let's Grow Kids is focusing on the pipeline. And as a Vermont AUIC board member and through my role with Let's Grow Kids, I've been really focused on those high school and middle school efforts. And I just wanted to circle back to something that Janet had referenced in her presentation about the CCV Career Access Day. And Sarah Kressler was also part of that. And I just wanted to let you know that it could be coming to a region near you. The model is developed so that it can be replicated. This sort of came out of a summer virtual career camp that wasn't as well attended as one might have liked, but it was great preparation. Jen Severance and I worked with that to put together a presentation for high school students. And that model included an interview with a recent high school graduate, as well as, you know, and we did an interview for that. So that's like a resource that's available if you're having conversation with students. But the most current model that we just delivered in Bennington to almost 600 middle schoolers, the entire middle school attended the presentation, which is really exciting because when we think about introducing this career to all students, that model is something that I think could be really impactful, and comparing the difference between, you know, K-12 pathways and the importance of early childhood educators. It's really an opportunity to educate teachers, guidance counselors, in addition to the students, which is some of the things that we know need to happen to help folks understand the pathways. But that particular presentation included a full group discussion, shared video, and also, you know, smaller groups, which one was an introduction to a college course taught by Allison Grizz, which so it was an introduction to early childhood education. We facilitated, Diane Carter and I facilitated a panel discussion that included pre-apprentices with one of their host sites, which is the Growing Up Right at the CTE. And then there was also a pathway, you know, an introduction to going to college. So I think we're waiting for, you know, some feedback from the teachers at the middle school, but I think it's going to be a great model. And virtual is not necessarily the best option. And, you know, the intent is for this to be able to be an in-person delivery for any, you know, it's up to the schools to decide if they want to be middle school or high school students, but it's an opportunity to really share this career pathway in a much broader way. So I'm super excited about it. And I wanted to let you know that it might be coming to some of these regional folks that are here today. So I just want to share that.
That's great. That's a lot of information. Thank you, Sharon. Janet?
There's a lot of information because I'm going to share more now, which is that there's just so much going on around this. And again, we need to make sure that it really feels like we need to ensure that this link between the statewide and the regional is really strong. You know, another program that is going to come soon is scholarships for early childhood educators, for people who are studying early childhood education or highly related fields. VSAC is going to be offering it. It was another one of the programs passed within Act 45 last year. It's designed for those folks who are not yet working, close to full time in the field. So maybe like Teach program is designed for people that are working full time and going to school part of the time, basically. And the scholarship program is more for those folks that are looking at being fuller time students, and maybe they're not only working in the field during the summer, or they're not working full time in the field. So that new program is coming as part of that effort too. We are Vermont AEYC is part of that, along with VSAC has the contract, and we're partnering with them on that. And part of that is working with VSAC and with their outreach team and their folks that are working with that are looking at folks who are looking at how to pursue higher education and helping them, or their next credential, and helping educate them on early childhood education. What are the career paths? What are the credentials that are needed? And I think we all also really need to make sure we're, and part of that education is focusing on the fact that, early childhood education, again, is not the career for people that, it's not just a career for people that couldn't do something else. It's not the career of last resort. This is actually a really highly skilled, rewarding career that that challenges people in and requires really high level thinking, requires really sophisticated engagement with children as well as with families, and that there are lots of options available to support higher education in terms of the cost there, and just really like flipping that frame is something that Vermont AEYC finds important. But in general, we're finding that like bringing everybody else who works in workforce development or career education or career counseling along with that is something that that as a field needs to really be done. And we're seeing that. I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I think that the enrollment within early childhood education coursework at CCV increased. If at least increased by 50%, it might have increased by 100% in the last year, because it's now affordable, right? There's all sorts of scholarships available, for people who are interested in certificates or degrees within early childhood education, through some of the ARPA funds. And so I just wanted to sort of flag that again, there are something we haven't even talked about yet in talking about the workforce development efforts are the plethora of financial aid that is now available for people that are seeking early childhood education. And again, this question of when we're reaching out to people and interesting them in the field, that's an amazing benefit. It's not that the individual employer needs to offer a tuition assistance program. The state is offering a tuition assistance program for people who are interested in early childhood education. And we've got to figure out how to like package that and communicate it, and agree that actually having those credentials is actually really important for the quality of early childhood education that we want to offer to children. So that's definitely, as I know I just popped on my soapbox for a couple minutes, but I wanted to make that point. And the second thing is just thinking about the way all of these programs fit together also feels important, because I can see how if there is this support for trainees and, in this idea of a step up to childcare type program, that would be those would be perfect people to direct into the apprenticeship program, so that they can continue to develop their skills, right? So just like we've got this program at the high school level for high school students within CTE's program, that's a pre-apprenticeship program that's getting into the apprenticeship program. Is there a way to think about how we engage with adults within CTE centers as almost a pre-apprenticeship, and gets them on that, what's their career path, right? Do they want to do apprenticeship, or would they like to take move directly into that college track position and start looking at teach? But again, making sure we're thinking through how these fit together and how they feed into one another, and making sure that everybody who's working in communities directly with early childhood educators and trying to tackle these issues knows what the resources are. I don't know, it just feels like I see us all working. It's so much progress, and I can see how just connecting and coordinating a little better could really benefit everybody.
Great, thank you. Cynthia, I see your hand. We do want to start winding this up. So if you just want to think about some last thoughts, Cynthia, go ahead.
Thanks, and really it's a follow-up question to Janet about that new VSAC. I was curious, as we've been talking about a pipeline really starting with, you know, people very early in their career. And I've been musing lately, as someone who's later in my career, how much I've missed not working with children and families, because I'm one of those early educators that had to leave the classroom and had to leave even administration because I couldn't afford it. And I would love to go back in my later years, thinking about, you know, as I'm winding down and seeking retirement and thinking about scaling back, you know, how cool would it be for me to be able to re-enter? However, I would need to get relicensed again. I've let my license lapse. I would need other types of supports. And so I'm just curious, you know, in Vermont, we hear about a lot of licensed early educators through our Agency of Education, but we don't know where they are because they're not practicing in the field. And so I am also curious about that population. Maybe I'm in the minority, but I do wonder, for those of us who have missed, frankly, not being able to explore this career as fully as we might have wanted to, how might we re-enter and what those opportunities are. So it's just another end of the spectrum that we could think about. So I appreciate being able to make the comment.
Great. So before we move on, does anybody have any kind of final thoughts that they'd like to make, sort of to wrap this all up? I think this was a really great conversation that is really the timing is for it is perfect, because we have the initiatives right now that Janet was talking about that we're working on, the loan repayment program, the scholarship program, and there's just a lot of opportunities around the state. And so many that I didn't even know we had available. So I think this was a really great opportunity to hear about all of that and to learn about all the things that are, all the really creative things that are going on around the state. And I appreciate so much everybody's time that they took to be with us today. I think at this point, I can go ahead and just give you a couple of very quick updates from CDD. And then Crystal is going to talk a little bit about some work that she's doing right now. So, but just before Crystal starts, we just wanted to let people know that there is a parent survey that is circulating right now. It was sent out over the listserv just a few days ago. And it is an opportunity to share your experiences, for parents to share their experiences. And it's being conducted by the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston's Community Development Department. And so we just wanted to let you all know that, that if anybody asks you anything about that, it is out there, and it is something that we are aware of and connected with. And let's see, what else did I have? We have BFIS is working on a new help desk platform, and that should be ready in about a month or so. And so we just want to let people know that's coming. And we had the first run of the 20% increase for folks went out last week on Thursday, last Thursday. So we want to let people know that that went out and appears to have gone out successfully. And then next, I wanted to introduce Lynn Robbins, who is going to be taking over the Child Care Quality Program Administrator position as an interim basis, and just welcome Lynn here. So she can wave, yay. Beyond that, I'll let Crystal jump in with her updates for the regulations.
And before I do that, I just wanted to give an opportunity if anyone had any questions about any of the updates Leslie just gave. All right. So wanted to share that in terms of childcare licensing, we have 3 different provider types: after school, center-based, and family homes. And we are embarking on a regulation revision project with all 3 provider types. And a couple weeks ago, we put out a request to all regulated programs, inviting people to volunteer to participate in the work groups. And at the beginning of this week, we sent out invitations to those that were selected to participate. Worked really hard to make sure that participation in each work group represents the different types of programs. So for after school, you know, we have 21st century after school programs, we have community-based programs, we have after school programs where the licensee is the school district. So when I talk about diversity, I really talk about the different types of programs that exist across the state. And we did that with center-based and with family home as well. And we also looked to make sure we had representation from across the state, so all parts. We also have community and agency partners that will be participating in those work groups. Vermont After School will be participating in the after school work group. Vermont AYC, Let's Grow Kids will be participating in some of the work groups. So just Agency of Education will be participating in each of the work groups as well. So just a lot of diverse representation. What spurred the plans to do revisions was the need to update some regulations due to changes that have happened with state and or federal regulations or statutes. For example, lead water testing was a statute that was signed a couple of years ago. And so our regulations right now conflict with that for after school and family homes. So we need to address that alignment. The work group participants will look at some regulations and make recommendations to the division about whether to make a change or keep it the same. And we have a collector tool on our CDD website that's always available. And so we've taken all of those responses that we've been receiving, and that's kind of starting off the process, but work group participants will also be able to identify any additional rules. They'll also be able to, in preparation for the first meeting, see whatever draft proposal we already have for revisions. We hope by the end of April, those work groups will be done, and then we will start the formal promulgation process for changing regulations. And that formal process includes public comments that we respond to, as well as legislative oversight and review. I think I'll stop there unless anyone has any questions. I think that kind of tells you our intent and our process that we're embarking on. Happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Thank you, Crystal. I just wanted to give everybody an opportunity, a final opportunity, if you have any questions for any of us from CDD. And then if not, I'll pass it back to Jen.
I have a question, and feel free to tell me if you don't have information to share right now. But I saw in the commentary that Miranda put in, that was public commentary that went out today, It specifically mentioned, it said restarting the CDA program at our CTE center. Was in the public commentary that was what Miranda put out, and I didn't know if there was anything to share on that at this point. I wasn't sure what it was referring to.
Lynn?
The only thing I know about that, because I noticed that as well, and I asked a question about that, and what we heard back was there was something that was put in the governor's proposed budget about this, and something to do with the Department of Labor. So I've actually sent an email off this morning to someone at Department of Labor to say, do you know anything about this? Can you tell me more? So I'll be in touch.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
I just wanted to mention, well, this committee serves on the advisory committee for the systems analysis. And we've been going through a process, a series of presentations with the Watershed Foresight team, essentially doing the same presentation that they did for the advisory committee last month, but continuing to share that with stakeholders across the state, all virtual sessions. So we had another one last night hosted by the Southeast Vermont Regional Council. We had, almost 30 people, which was great. We have 2 more sessions that are coming up. So again, if you hear of folks who want to be able to tune in and understand what the consultants heard as major themes and to provide input, they are working on another document that they will bring to the advisory committee. We are having the next advisory committee meeting is April 11th. That is scheduled to be an in-person meeting at the Waterbury Best Western. So I think it'll be my first in-person meeting in a really long time. So anyway, and they will have kind of draft recommendations and pros and cons and all. So we are there's one meeting on the 21st, March 21st, essentially presentation, and then another one we're co-hosting with Vermont AUIC on the 23rd at night. So anyone's welcome to join to get that information and participate.
Sounds good. Thank you, Beth. So I think that's all that I had. So I will pass it to Jen.
Great, and we just have about 10 minutes left, so I just wanted to open it up and see if anybody had any comments or announcements that they didn't have a chance to make. Janet?
Sorry, guys. The thing there's one exciting. So I wanted to flag a couple which was mentioned already, but was the Week of the Young Child is at the beginning of April. Vermont AUIC was is pulling together just a website that's got resources and lists of the all of the events that are happening around the state. We just did a little mini grant program where we offered a grant for up to $500 for regional efforts to recognize Week of the Young Child. So those have been selected and those 5 programs are there, but happy to include any other efforts on our website. We're anticipating doing press releases and social around this. So, our efforts sort of doing that on the statewide level would hopefully boost awareness of events in specific regions. We are anticipating that we will have a proclamation from the governor this year acknowledging a Week of the Young Child, and we're also have a scheduling request in for a potential in-person event with the governor as well. So from Vermont AUIC is really looking to make this Week of the Young Child a significant reminder to everybody about how important our young children are, and to provide support events that are supporting young families and children and knowing just how important they are. So and more on our team is organizing that. If you've got event information, you can send it to her. We'll be putting out sort of calls for information, and I'll follow up. I followed up in the chat already with Amy and Martin, who had mentioned specific events. So I just wanted to flag that for everybody. Something to keep on your radar.
Thank you, Janet. This is kind of your wheelhouse, so I'm not surprised you have more to add. Does anybody else have any other comments or questions or connections to make? Then I think we can end a little bit early. I want to thank everybody who presented their information, and thank you all for your thoughtful comments and questions. I've had a couple of questions about the recording. This is recorded and we'll send it out to everybody with the notes. So have a great day, everyone. Thank you so much.
Have a great day, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.